pleasure to speak to you again.
Morné, anytime I get to spend with you is Jack's ahead of the game. Pleasure to be here.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about quite an important topic that seems to be coming up quite a bit with the companies that we're speaking to. You know, from what we've observed, kind of post-COVID, really from October, November last year onwards, there seemed to have been a pretty good recovery, certainly here in the UK, and also I can understand in the US. And a lot of businesses that, you know, had their business scaled down, should we say, are reinvesting in sales talent. So we see a lot of companies that are investing into new sales teams, new sales people, new sales managers. And obviously that throws up its own unique set of challenges. And one of the things that I've heard you speak about a lot is really the mindset of professional sports teams, how they go out and scout and recruit and how they build that talent pool. And I wanted to ask you, what is it that you think we can learn from how professional sports teams, you know, fill the bench, if you will, and how do we apply that to stocking our sales team with A players?
Yeah, so absolutely great point. And by the way, I think that what you asked just now has little to do with the pandemic. I think whether you're in a pandemic, whether you're pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, this is a universal. Sports teams are run better than most businesses. Now, where do I come from on that? They run their teams with a playbook. They practice and they have a coach. And so I would challenge business owners, how are you faring on those three criteria? Now, I make my journey all over the world doing what I do and helping companies grow and scale. And I hear this everywhere I go. Finding good salespeople is really hard. And my response is, well, are you looking for them? And they look at me and go, of course I'm looking. And I go, well, I think I can help you. Show me the list.
Right.
And it's crickets. If you don't have a list of prospects that you would like to join your team, you're not looking, you're not recruiting.
Right.
You're in wishful thinking. Hopefully I could run into a superstar salesperson. Now, if I went to a sports team and said, are you recruiting? They'd say yes, just like my business clients. And then I would say to the sports coach, do you have a list? Of course they have a list. In fact, there's a high performing basketball college team in the States. Duke University for the last 30 years has been a perennial top performer. Their coach just retired, Coach K. There's only 12 players on the team. 5 of them are starters. And they're all high school All-Americans at Duke. But if I asked Coach K, is he recruiting? Of course I am. Do you have a list? And he'd say yes. And I'd look at it, hundreds of candidates on the list. My message to anybody that wants to recruit is find the candidates that you would like to have on your team and regularly go after them. Now, you guys at Emerse, you help companies with that challenge. You help them find sales talent. How do you guys go about that?
Do you know what? It's interesting. I heard you speak on this topic 4 years ago when we first met. And since then, what we've been saying to the companies that speak to us is something similar to that, which is, I want you to take a prospecting mindset to recruitment. Imagine if a company only prospected for new business when they needed it.
Right.
It would be feast and famine. It would be a disaster, right? People like, oh, we're not doing any marketing, any business development. We're not making any calls, no field, because we have revenue. And then, oh, we don't have any revenue. Let's go find some revenue. And yet, that's the exact mindset that they take to recruiting. Oh, we have a hole to fill. Let's go look for someone.
Oh, well, listen, here's the beauty of that hole to fill is when I ask, where's the list? And they say, well, we're fully staffed. And can you imagine a sports coach saying, well, my team is complete? They're always looking to upgrade the team. if
Sure.
you run into a sales talent, you can find room for that person. No question about it. So there's an allocation of time and effort that needs to be invested in this thing called recruiting. And it isn't when we've got an opening. You always have one.
Absolutely agree. And, following on from that, I know that when we have that conversation and we say, look, bring a prospecting mindset, or we use the sports analogy, much like I learned from you, and there's a little light that comes on with the CEO, owner, manager, and they go, actually, you know what? That makes complete sense. Where do I start? And I recall that you and I were speaking to a group of CEOs in Alabama a few months ago. And I remember on one of the days, you made this point, which really resonated with me, which was that the company really needs to take time and effort to develop the ideal candidate profile, whether that's for a salesperson, whether it's for a sales manager. And that got me thinking, the sports metaphor that you use, I can't imagine any professional sports team not being incredibly specific about the position that they want to fill. Oh, I don't care if it's an offensive lineman or a defensive, we'll just get somebody good and we'll stick them in there and hope for the best. That's not how that works. So I'd like to speak to, this process of building up the candidate profile and how that helps the company to find that A-player ideal candidate.
Yeah, so where I'd really like to start, Morné, is that too often what happens is we look and recruit, interview, and hire for industry-specific people.
Right.
I wish I could encourage business people to understand that you can teach the skills if you have the right attitudinal person. Recruit. Okay. So I'm not against hiring for the talent with experience. I'm not. Don't get me wrong there, but recruit for skills, but hire for attitude. 50% or more of success at selling has nothing to do with product, price, service, strategies, or tactics. It has to do with getting up in the morning and wanting to go after it. Grit, G-R-I-T. So if you don't define it, you won't find it. And so the profile is, what are the personal characteristics and attributes? What will make this person excel by coming into this role in the company? And so, I've got this 3-word phrase that I use with a lot of my clients: will over skill, right?
Right.
And so frame the profile in that context. That's what I would say. Now, when I think about what's going on out there, what are you hearing in terms of the difficulty of finding good people? Whether you're in the UK or whether you're in the USA, because you've got legs in both those markets. Are you hearing? Is it more difficult post-pandemic, or I hear about Great Resignation? Is that in the sales world? What are your clients and what are you running into? What do you?
I think a very relevant question, actually, Jack. And I laugh, but it's almost like a sad laugh rather than a laugh of joy, because it's been interesting to kind of track this thing over the last year. Coming out of the end of last year, we had what you just referenced. People were calling it the Great Resignation. It was almost like everyone was staying put in their jobs during the pandemic, and then all of a sudden, everyone was like, right, it's time to go out there and find something new. And the market was just flooded with candidates and people were hiring, and it was just this feeding frenzy. And then I would get companies telling me, oh, but it's really difficult to hire right now because there's so many candidates and everybody's trying to hire, and I'm having to compete with all these companies and I'm having to pay high wages. And I was like, okay, well, let's help you with that. Let's be specific about the candidate that you want, like you've just said. Let's, help you with the processes, and let's make sure that you're always recruiting, etc. Then over the last maybe 3 or 4 months, we now are seeing in the UK and the US record low unemployment, right? For the first time in a decade, low unemployment. Now I'm hearing, oh, well, there aren't any good candidates out there. So you can't win. Either there's too many and I have to compete too hard, or there's not enough. but it's like, the porridge is never just hot enough, like in the, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's like, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's never enough. And from our perspective, I feel like, and you speak a lot about this, and I love that book that you recommended to me, Mindset. This is the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset, right? Whatever you believe the market is doing, that's what it's doing. If you think it's too many candidates or too few, you're right in both instances, because what you believe is your reality. And actually, what I wanted to do, maybe to close off today's call, I wanted to just maybe get some pearls of wisdom from you, maybe something that I can borrow from you the next time I have to have this conversation with a client. And that is, if you were sitting in front of one of your clients, a CEO, owner, manager, entrepreneur, and they've got a good business, they clearly should be investing in their sales management, whatever it might be, but they're hesitant. Maybe they're hesitant because people are talking about a recession and inflation, whatever the reason might be. What would you say to that hesitant CEO who's not pulling the trigger, who's not taking that leap to hiring the talent that they so clearly need?
If you're truly interested in growing your business, you have no choice. There isn't a should I or shouldn't I. You need to hire people to grow your business. Look, this is not egotistical on my part. It's just a fact. I've been selling for a long, long time, and I've gotten pretty good at it over the years. But as good as I may think I am, and as good as I may be, I've got a real dilemma, and that's called only so many hours in a day. I can only make so many calls, take so many calls, and write so many deals, right? So if we don't recruit and hire more salespeople, we have a lid on our revenue line. That I just can't get any more out of me, no matter how good I am. And so what I say is that hiring salespeople in particular is not an expense. It's an investment. And we ought to be clear about what that return on investment is. Now, we're going to open up a real can here that we might want to talk about in another session. But how do you pay your salespeople is a big item. Now, I can be negotiated with on this, but my ideal world is where salespeople are 100% at risk. Let's just call it commission only. Now, I get pushback from an awful lot of people on that, but when I explain how you can go about that process, then it's a no-brainer. But I also believe that I want my salespeople to have no cap, and they could make incredible money in my company. I just want to tie it to the production that they produce. When we start to philosophically embrace that, and then we take it down and put it into something tactically in terms of the comp plan, then we won't have that hesitancy, because it gets very clear. If I've found someone that meets the profile, I've increased the probability that they'll be successful. And then when I make the investment in the hire, I should then find that return on investment relatively quickly, regardless of what your business is. So, I have a history of growing my companies at a very rapid pace. And as you know, I do CEO coaching one-on-one around the world on the phone. And I don't take clients on that are interested in single-digit or double-digit growth. I'm looking for significant growth. And the big item in significant growth is hiring great people.
Gotcha. Well, I think the teaser or the little cliffhanger on telling people how to compensate your salespeople and how to build a commission on your sales team is actually, let's leave that as a teaser for another session, another chat that we're going to have in the future, because I'm convinced that there are CEOs, owner managers of business going, no, tell us now. So we'll save that for another time, but that's a great cliffhanger. Jack, thank you so much.
Hold on a second.
Go on.
Before we cut out, because you gave a cliffhanger, you teased people with the fact that the world is changing in terms of the economy, and price increases are taking place, and interest rates are going up, all of those types of things, and people are feeling really compressed over price. And so what I can do as a tease here is to follow that up and just say that, quite frankly, people don't make buying decisions based on price. And if you want to find out what we're talking about there, that's another session as well.
I love that. You're on. Let's do that one next month. And then I don't think we're going to have a shortage of things to talk about. I look forward to our next chat. Thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate you. Appreciate the sage advice. And I look forward to our next chat in about 4 weeks' time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Morné.